Maniac McGee, Chapter 24. They got back to the Bandshell just as they finished the last of the crimpets. Grayson looked at his watch. Guess it's time to quit the job I never did today. Time for dinner, too. Grayson was joking, but Maniac was serious when he piped, Great! Where to go? Dumbfounded, the old man drove back out of the park to the nearest diner, where he sat with a cup of coffee while the boy wolfed down meatloaf and gravy and mashed potatoes, zucchini and salad, and coconut custard pie. Grayson had a way of jumping into a subject without warning. It was during Maniac's dessert that he abruptly said, Them black people, they eat mashed potatoes too? Maniac thought he was kidding, and then realized he wasn't. Sure, Mrs. Beale used to have potatoes a lot, mashed in every other way. Mrs. who? Mrs. Beale. Do you know the Beales of 728 Sycamore Street? The old man shook his head. Well, they were my family. I had a mother and a father and a little brother and sister and a sister my age and a dog. I had my own room, too. Grayson stared out the diner window as if digesting this information. How about meatloaf? Huh? They eat that too? Sure, meatloaf too, and peas and corn, you name it. Cake? Maniac beamed. Oh, man, you're kidding, right? Mrs. Beale makes the best cakes in the world. Toothbrushes? They use them? Maniac fought not to smile. Absolutely, we all had our toothbrushes hanging in the bathroom. I know that, said Grayson, impatient. But is theirs the same as ours? No difference that I could see. You didn't drink out the same glass. Absolutely we did. This information seemed to shock the old man. Maniac laid down his fork. Grayson, they're just regular people like us. I was never in a house of theirs. Well, I'm telling you, it's the same. There's bathrooms and bathtubs and refrigerators and rugs and TVs and beds. Grayson was wagging his head. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? It was after dark when they got back to the baseball equipment room, and the worm in Grayson's head had long since ceased to be a tiny tickle. It was now a maddening itch. Side note, this is the idea of taking care of this kid. As with all such itch worms, it would exit by only one route, the mouth, and he said, I was thinking, maybe you want to come over to my place? This here floor is pretty hard. He tapped his floor to show how hard. The grizzled, gray old park hand could never know how much Maniac was tempted or how deeply the offer touched him. Neither could Maniac explain that the bad luck he always seemed to have with parents led him to the conclusion he'd better stick to himself. It's not so bad here. Look! He lay down on the chest protectors and closed his eyes. Just like a mattress. I can feel myself dozing off already. And then, not wanting to hurt the old man's feelings, he quickly added, Hey, I told you everything about me. How about you? He pulled Grayson's coat over himself. How about a bedtime story? Grayson snorted. Story? I don't know no stories. Sure you do. About yourself. You know, about you. Everybody has a story. Not me, said the old man. Grayson was edging for the door. I ain't got no story, kid. I ain't nobody. I work at the park. You line baseball fields, right? Yep, I do that. You live at the YMCA. You drive the park pickup. You like butterscotch crimpets. Grayson shook his head. Not as much as you. I was eating them to be friendly so you wouldn't have to eat them all by yourself. And there's another thing about you, Maniac joked. You're a liar. They both laughed. Grayson opened the door. Wait, called Maniac. What did did you want to grow up to be when you were a kid? Grayson paused in the doorway and he looked out into the night. A baseball player, he said, and he turned the light out and closed the door. Chapter 25. In the morning, Grayson bought Maniac an Egg McMuffin and a large orange juice, and he bought the same thing for himself, so they ate breakfast together in the baseball equipment room. You sent me to bed without a story last night, Maniac kidded. Grayson brushed a yellow speck of egg from his white stubble. I don't got no stories, I told you that. You wanted to be a baseball player. That ain't no story. Well, did you become one? Grayson drank his orange juice. Just the minors, Maniac yelped. The minors! Yeah, I couldn't never make it to the majors. There was afraid weariness in the old man's words, as though they had long since worn out. Side note, any baseball player that makes it to the minor leagues, you gotta be really, really good to get to the minors. Grayson, the minors! Man, you must have been good. What position did you play? Grayson said, pitcher. This word, unlike all the others, was not worn out at all, but fresh and robust. It startled Maniac. It declared, I am not what you see. I am not a line-laying, pickup-driving, live-at-the-wide, bean-brain park-hand. I am not a rickety, whiskered, worn-out child. I am a pitcher. Maniac had sensed there was something more to the old man. Now he knew what it was. Grayson, what's your first name? The old man fidgeted. Earl. But you call me Grayson, like everybody else. He looked at the clock on the wall. Gotta go. Grayson, wait! I'm late for work, kid. You ought to be in school. And then he was gone. Grayson returned at noon bearing Zeps, remember that's a sandwich, and sodas, and when he was not allowed to leave until he told Maniac one story about the minor leagues. So he told the kid about his first day in the minors, with Bluefield, West Virginia, in the Appalachian League, Class D. Can't get no lower than that in the minors, he told the kid. That's where you broke in. They don't have D-League no more. Side note, today they have AAA, AA, and Single A. Back then they had Class D, C, B, and A, and you moved up as you got better. He told about thumbing a ride to Bluefield, West Virginia, and when he got there, going up to a gas station attendant and asking the man which way to the ballpark. And the gas station man told him, Sure, but first I gotta ask you something. You're a new ball player, right? Just coming on board? And Grayson said, Yep, that's right. And the man said, I thought so. Well, then you're just going to want to make your first stop right over there. And he pointed across the street. That there restaurant, the Blue Star, you just go right on in there and you sit yourself down and you tell the waitress you want the biggest steak on the menu. And anything else you want, too, because it's all on the house. The Blue Star treats every new rookie to his first new meal in town free. And he gave a wink. They want your business. Great, thought Grayson, and he did just that. Only when he got up and left, the restaurant owner came running after him down the street, all mad at Grayson for skipping out on the bill. And when Grayson told him he was a rookie just picking up his first free meal, the owner got even madder. Seems that gas station man was a real card. That's a metaphor for a joker. And he liked to welcome dumb rookies with his little practical joke. And that's how it came to be. When the Bluefield Bullets took the field that day, they did so without the services of their new pitcher, who was back in the kitchen of the Blue Star restaurant washing dishes to work off a 16-ounce steak, half a broiled chicken, and 2 pieces of rhubarb pie. After a story like that, Maniac couldn't just stay behind, so he tagged along when Grayson went to work. He helped the old man raise a new fence around the children's petting farmyard. And when the park superintendent came around and asked about that kid, Grayson said it was his nephew who came to visit for a while. And the superintendent, who managed the budget, said, We can't pay him, you know. And Grayson said, "Fine, no problem." And that was that. From then on, Maniac was on the job with Grayson every afternoon. They raised fences, they mended fences, they hauled stone, they patched asphalt, they painted, they trimmed trees, they ate breakfast, they ate lunch and dinner together, sometimes in the equipment room, sometimes at a restaurant. And they spent weekends together. All the while, Grayson told baseball stories, insisting all along, "I ain't got no stories." He told about the Appalachian League and the Carolina League and the Pecos League and the Buckeye League and the Mexican Leagues, about the Paducah Twin Oaks, the Natchez Pelicans, the Jessup Georgia Browns, and the Laredo Lariats, all minor league teams. Minor league baseball. Sleazy hotels, sleazy buses, sleazy stadiums, sleazy fans, sleazy water buckets. Sleazy means gross and nasty. Curveballs and bus fumes and dreams of making it to the majors. Clean sheets, up in the majors, and an umpire at every base. In the minor leagues, there's only 2 umpires on the field. In the majors, there's 4. Funny stories, happy stories, sad stories, just plain good baseball stories. The happiest story was being the one about Willie Mays. Willie Mays' very last at-bat in the minor leagues before he went up to the New York Giants in immortality. Immortality means you live on forever. Willie Mays, by the way, was one of the greatest baseball players in history. Well, it was Earl Grayson, Grayson himself, who had the last crack at Willie Mays in the 9th inning of a game with Indianapolis. And what did old Grayson do? All he did was set the Say Hey Kid down swinging on 3 straight curveballs. Willie Mays' nickname was the Say Hey Kid. Set him down is an idiom which means to strike someone out. Earl Grayson struck out Willie Mays. And the saddest story was the one about the scout who had come down from the Toledo Mud Hens. That's a real team, by the way. The Mud Hens had a roster slot, and the scout had an idea, a notion, to fill it with this pitcher, the one with the wicked curveball, by the name of Earl Grayson. This was Grayson's big chance. Big chance, because the Mud Hens were AAA, Class A, just one step away from the big leagues, the majors. And the night before the game, Grayson spent half of it on his knees by his bed praying. And even 5 minutes before the game in the dugout, he bent down pretending to tie his shoe and closed one eye and prayed, "Please let me win this ball game." Which was something, since he had never gone to a church in his life. God must have fainted, he said to Maniac. And indeed, maybe God did. Or maybe he only listened to major leaguers because Grayson took the mound and he proceeded to pitch the flat-out awfulest, worstest game of his life. His curveball wasn't curving. His sinker ball wasn't sinking. His knuckler ball wasn't knuckling. The batters were teeing off as if it was the invasion of Normandy Beach, and before the 3rd inning was over, the score was 12-0, and Grayson was out of the game and into the showers. He was 27 years old then, and that was the closest he would ever go to the big show, the majors. He hung on for 13 more years. He was a baseball junkie, winding up in some hot tamale league in Guanajuato, Mexico, until his curveball could no longer bend around so much as a chili pepper, and his fastball was slower than a senorita's answer. He was 40 back then, out of baseball, and for all intents and purposes, he was out of life. He was a dropout. All those years in the game, and all he was fit to do was clean bathrooms or sweep a floor or lay a chalk line, or far, far down the road tell stories to a wide-eyed homeless kid. Chapter 26. It was impossible to listen to such stories empty-handed, and as soon as Grayson started one, Maniac would reach into that equipment bag and he would pull out a ball or a bat or a catcher's mitt, sniffing the scuffed horsehide aroma of the ball, rippling the fingertips over the red stitching. It's hard to say how these things can make the listening better, but they do. And for Maniac, they did. And of course, as happens with baseball, one thing led to another, and pretty soon the two of them were tossing a ball back and forth. And then they were outside where the throws could be longer, where you could play pepper on the outfield grass of the Legion field. The old man pitching, the kid tapping grounders, where you could shag fungos. Shag fungos is when someone hits pop-ups to the outfield. The old man popping high flies and the kid chasing them down. And now the stories were mixed with instruction. The grizzled rickety coot, Mr. Grayson, Earl Grayson, showing the kid how to spray liners to the opposite field, how to get a jump on a long fly ball even before the batter hits it, how to throw the curveball, stiff, crooked fingers that grappled clumsily with crimpet wrappers, curled naturally around the shape of a baseball. With the ball in his hand, the park handyman became a professor of baseball. As to the art of pitching, of course, the old man could show and tell, but he could no longer do. Except for one pitch, the only one left in his repertoire from the old days, he called it the stop ball. And it nearly drove Maniac crazy. The old man claimed he'd discovered the stop ball one day down in the Texas League, and that he was long gone from baseball when he perfected it. Unlike most pitches, the stop ball involved no element of surprise. On the contrary, which means the opposite. The old man would always announce it. "Okay," he'd call in from the mound. "Here she comes. Now keep your eye on her, because she's going to float on up there, and just about the time she's over the plate, she's going to stop. Now nobody else ever hit it, so don't you go getting upset if you don't neither. It's no shame to whiff on the stop ball." And then he'd throw it. Well, of course, Maniac knew that most of, if not all of this, was blarney. Blarney means made-up junk. And just to make sure, he watched the ball extra carefully. There sure didn't seem to be anything unusual about it. Not at first, anyway. But as that ball came closer, it did somehow seem to get more and more peculiar. And by the time it reached the plate, it might as well just have stopped, because Maniac never knew if he was swinging at the old man's pitch or at his speech. Whatever, in weeks of trying, he never hit it out of the infield. It was October. The trees rimming the outfield were flaunting their colors. The kid and the old geezer baseballed their lunch times away, and the afternoon dinner times, and the weekends. And every night as the old man left for his room at the YMCA, he'd grouse, "You ought to go to school, kid." And one night the kid said back, "I do." And that's how the old man found out what the kid was doing with his mornings. He had noticed the books before, rows and piles of them, that kept growing. But there being books, he didn't think much of it. Now the kid tells him, "You know the money that you give me?" Because each morning he gave the kid 50 cents or $1 to get himself some crimpets. "Well, I take it up to the library, and right inside the door they have these books that they're selling. Cases of them, old books they don't want anymore. They only cost 5 or 10 cents a piece." He pointed to the piles. "I buy them." He showed them to the old man. Ancient, back-broken math books, flaking travel books, warped spellers, mangled mysteries, biographies, music books, astronomy books, and cookbooks. "What's the matter?" said the old man. "Can't you make up your mind what kind you want?" The kid laughed. "I want them all." He threw his hands up. "I'm learning everything." He opened one of the books. "Look! Geometry, triangles. Okay, isosceles triangles. These two legs, they look equal to you?" Yeah. The old man nodded. "Okay, but can you prove it?" The old man studied the triangle for a full minute. If I had a ruler, maybe." "No ruler." The old man sighed. "I guess I give up." So the kid proved it, absolutely dead center proved it. And 2 days later, while playing pepper in the Legion infield, the old man said to the kid, "So, why don't you go ahead and teach me how to read?"